And for anyone who is just trickling in here, we're going to get started promptly at 6:03 Pacific. We're just giving everyone an opportunity to grab a snack, grab a drink to enjoy while we hang out. I got my water here. And yeah, we'll get started in exactly 60 seconds. All right. As we're waiting for folks to trickle in here, for all my friends that are in the house, where are y'all joining me from? Feel free to drop it in the chat box here. Just want to get a sense of where everyone's at in the world. Welcome in, Justin. Welcome in, Jason, Derek. All right. Bala's in Chicago. Beautiful. I hope it's a little cooler. I know it can get a little hot in the dog days of summer. Ooh, we have somebody in Seattle, someone in India. Welcome, welcome. San Jose, my neighbor. We're right down the street. Toledo, love it. Texas, hook 'em. All right, this is great. Cool. All right. And just so I got a sense of the group here, and then we're going to get started as soon as I ask this question. Just curious, like how many people are currently in school, undergrad, just graduated, rising senior? Just want to get a sense of who we all are. Feel free to drop that in the box. Yeah. Cool. Second year of graduate, rising senior, graduated. Excellent. Sweet. Just graduated. Hey, and congratulations to all of you who just finished up school. I know that transition is a little weird, a little strange. Rising seniors, enjoy it. Have a lot of fun this year. Also be proactive. We'll talk about that a little bit here. But awesome. Cool. So I'll jump us in. Who is Nick? I am Nick. Hello. I'm not going to spend too much time on myself, but just wanted to introduce myself to everybody. My background's in recruiting. When I was 18 years old, a freshman in college, there we go. I had my first recruiting job ever. I was a recruiting chair for a fraternity, a brand new one. It was a startup fraternity. And I had a lot of success there. I ended up getting flown around the country to teach other school organization leaders how to recruit. And that's when I really fell in love with it. I was like, people are asking me how to do things. But as a freshman, I had a fitness club on campus. That was the fastest growing club on campus in its first year. And then the fraternity, which for anybody who's been in Greek life before, it was the number one prepped house with 93 people prepping it as their one and only house. And I never had a recruitment job. So I was like, that's solid. What did I study? Just to show how much of a mess I was in college. I came in studying econ, did not like it, switched over to communications because I had no clue what I wanted. And along the way, I also had majors or minors in sociology, philosophy, psychology, physics, music, marketing, and entrepreneurship. So for anyone who's like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. Great. I was in the exact same seat. When I did graduate, I graduated early. I started working for my favorite basketball team, Golden State Warriors. I promise I was a fan before Steph Curry was even a thing. Yes, we were terrible for anyone who's a basketball fan. And I also wrote for NBA.com and did some international scouting for Net Scouts. And for me, it was all about, I love team building. I love putting people in positions to succeed. When I decided, okay, I didn't really want to pursue the basketball path, I started to recruit for a company called Apex Systems. I supported companies like Google and Apple, saw what it's like for those external recruiters. Then I went in-house at LinkedIn, learned a lot about why do we hire, why do we skip on the people we do, what does that hiring process look like from inside the house. And then when I was about 26 years old, I was a founding team member of a little company called Interview Kickstart, which fast forward in time at this point has helped more than 10,000 people get new jobs. So that was a fun ride, but it led me to Jobright. And to me, as I was going through this whole journey, really starting from this space, I was seeing what a lot of people are seeing today, which is that the way that the recruiting industry happens, or the way people hire in the age of technology, is fundamentally not great. What's happening is we bring in as many applicants as humanly possible at the top of a funnel, and we don't have enough time or energy in the day to actually touch each of them and talk to each of them, or even look at all their resumes. So we just kind of take who we can, we get our hire, and then we close it out. And the problem with that is we don't necessarily know if the people that we talk to are better than the ones that we haven't talked to yet, but we just simply don't have time for all of them. And I noticed that that problem really when I was at LinkedIn, and I wanted to change this. I wanted to make sure that we found the right people for the right jobs. I wanted to make sure that people who do work hard, do have the right skill sets, can have an opportunity. And I think this problem has only gotten worse over time as more and more people and more companies have shifted to hiring online. And so when I met the founders of Jobright, it made me really excited because it gives an opportunity to the people, to the candidates of the world, to actually find the right opportunities and then actually stand out in a crowd of too many people, right? So that's what it's about here. I will show you a bunch of things with Jobright as we go through, as well as with LinkedIn. But just a few things that I want to highlight here. Jobright really gives you the opportunity to study your career. And what I mean by that is you get a sense based on your resume which roles you're actually qualified for and which ones you're not qualified for. And you can start to understand if that lack of qualification is because it's an industry misfit, if it's a skill misfit, an experience misfit, or if it's just the way you're presenting yourself on your resume. And if it is actually a bigger alignment than we understand, we have a Copilot tool, which I've been able to pour my experience into. Some of my friends who also help Jobright out, who are technical recruiters at companies like Meta, ex-Amazon, these kinds of companies, as well as successful startups, are all feeding their knowledge into Orion so that it can help you rewrite your resume so that you could be a better fit for different roles, or see what you need to adjust to be a better fit. So there's a lot of really cool things going on here that will give you a leg up, especially on, quote unquote, your competition. But what we're really going to be covering today are these two central questions, okay? Our objective by the end of the day is for you to have a game plan. In order for us to have a game plan, we need to understand how you should choose your first role out of college and how you get your first job out of college. So what job should you even be applying to? And then how do you actually give yourself a chance to get that interview and succeed? Okay? So those are the two seminal questions of today. Now, I'm going to do something really quick for here just to make it easier on us to interpret this. But there are a few things I want us to consider, okay? Give me 1 second here. Bam. Just going to click that. Bam. Going to click that. Excellent. So there are two things that I really want us to think about through this process, okay? When we're thinking about what to apply for. I want you to think about what is your major, what is your education, what have you learned? I want you to think about any internships, personal projects, anything like that, where you've been able to apply what you've learned. And I want you to think about your interest. I want you to think about what really motivates you to want to learn or execute more. Okay? The intersection of these, that's the sweet spot where we should really be applying. Okay? So let's give an example. Okay? Let's say we've studied computer science, and more specifically, let's say you've been interested in data science or machine learning. Okay? There's an overlap between general computer science and ML or data science, right? Very good. Okay. And maybe you have experience with personal projects or class projects or internships that are more health related. If you could find a healthcare company that is hiring a data science or machine learning engineer, That's the sweetest spot. But there are also other spots that are adjacent to that could be there. So for example, there could be a general full stack developer role at a healthcare tech company. That would get these two overlaps. Maybe there's one where it's not healthcare. Maybe it's a retail company, but you're going to have an opportunity to be a machine learning engineer or a data scientist. So you're getting the experience you need that's aligned with your interest. Or maybe it's something where you get a little bit of both. Maybe it's not as computer science heavy as you'd like. Maybe it's more of a data heavy thing, right? Where you're more of like a data analyst or a business analyst, but you get to use a lot of the skills that you learned, right? So there's a lot of ways that this could overlap, but if you can find that sweet spot where all three are clicking, that's really the North Star that we want to go for. Okay. And if there are any questions as well on any of this, feel free to raise your hand. I can take you off mute. Feel free to drop it in the chat box. I want to make sure that all of this is making sense and that we're covering all the bases. If I can get a quick just like thumbs up, we're all on the same page with kind of how we want to think about that intersection. Yeah. Okay. Cool. And Marcus and Michael, I see that you guys came off mute. Quick questions there or anything you wanted to clarify? No? Okay. Cool. We'll keep cruising. So things that we should be considering when targeting that first role. Industry. So what I mean by industry is that different industries present different opportunities over the lifetime of your career. They have pros and cons. So as an example, if we get into the tech industry, high tech, there's usually a lot more innovation. It's usually a lot fast growing. There's a lot less regulation and red tape, which means there's more opportunities for innovation, creativity, things like this over the long run. It's also a lot faster paced, a lot more competitive, maybe not quite as much work-life balance as some people would like, especially when they get later in life and they start to have kids and things like this. But the tech industry has a lot of upside potential where you can earn a lot, build a lot of cutting edge skills, be very relevant to switch into other things. Another industry can be like retail, healthcare, finance. You can still hold technical roles in each of those other industries, and you might not be able to innovate as quickly because there's more regulation, for example, finance and healthcare in particular, right? So there's limitations to the speed, there's limitation to the expectations, how much you can learn from a tech standpoint. But there's also potential upsides like finance. You can still make a lot of money in it, right? Healthcare, pretty good money, maybe not quite as much as high tech, but you also might be building things that move the planet forward. So if you're a more mission driven person, that could be a good place to be. Retail might not be, maybe you do really like retail, but it's also a great stepping stone into finance or into high tech, because a lot of high tech products, a lot of finance products have a lot of the same types of tools that they use in retail, right? Payment systems, recommendation systems, security systems. So these are the types of things that we should be thinking about when we're considering industry. Okay. Any questions on this? Make sense? Thumbs up. All right. Very good. Cool. The second thing to think about, company stage. All right. Thanks for the applause. I appreciate that. So company stage. Okay. Company stage is really important, again, because of the pros and cons and what they mean for the future of your career. You can either go to small companies like startups, companies that have 10, 20 people or less. You can go to really big companies that maybe have tens of thousands of engineers alone. Some companies like Amazon have 1 million employees, right? So very, very, very big. There's also a lot of companies in between, okay? And what you'll find over the course of your career is that there are pros and cons to each of these stages, and there's also different skill sets required to be successful in different stages. So on the one hand, if you are somebody that likes problems, like deep, deep problems, and you like to jump to different types of problems, and you just want to be a part of making an impact, and you want to learn as much as you can, startups are often a really good route. They're very stressful. They have not as much upside consistently as going to a bigger company, but potentially a lot more upside if you get lucky. And I do highlight lucky because not every company is going to get acquired. Not every company is going to go public. But I view startups as if it was a master's program or a PhD program. I'm going to pay for it in terms of lost wages. I'm going to learn a lot more than I might at a larger company. And if it hits, I'm going to get an amazing return on my investment. Okay? If it doesn't hit, I might have lost out on the money that I could have made elsewhere, but I'm still going to learn. I'm going to learn about myself. I'm going to learn about life. I'm going to learn about business. I'm going to learn about whatever I was building. Okay? Big companies have more earning potential consistently. So you might not have as high of a high ceiling as you would have with a startup that hits, but your floor is much higher. You're going to make more money in your base salary. You're going to make more money in terms of your stock or your equity that's guaranteed than you would at a small company if it doesn't hit, right? You also, because of the resources of those companies, generally have a little bit better balance. You generally have more cutting edge technologies because they can afford anything they want, right? The challenge with the big companies, and you get the name brand where people can recognize you and say, oh, okay, you're credible. The challenge with big companies is it's often hard to get on the coolest innovative projects. Why? Simply because there's a lot more people there that know more than you at this stage in your career, which is okay. You can get there one day, but it takes longer to get there because you just have to compete with more people internally to get to the really cool things. They're going to put somebody who's been at the company for 4 or 5 years and proven themselves for 4 or 5 years on the new innovative projects. You'll be supporting those people for the first 4 or 5 years, but you can learn a lot from those people. Okay, so there's benefits to that. In between, pre-IPO companies, right? Companies that have a few thousand people. Here's a lot of benefit to that. Can anybody think about the benefit to the pre-IPOs? It's kind of nuanced, but anybody have an idea? Feel free to drop it in the chat. Put your hand up if you have a sense. What is a pre-IPO? Let's explain that first. A pre-IPO company is a company that is not yet public. So you can think of something like, where was Pinterest 5 years ago? Where was Airbnb 5 years ago? Where was Uber or Lyft 5 years ago? Spotify 5 years ago. Why would it be a good idea to join one of those companies at some point in your career? What do you think? What are the pros and cons of the small company? What are the pros and cons of the big company? We're somewhere in the middle, Goldilocks zone, right? What do you guys think? They'll go public soon. Absolutely. Okay. And again, it's not guaranteed that they'll go public soon. NVIDIA a few years ago, Tesla a few years ago. It's not guaranteed that they're going to go public, but you'll make a little bit more money in terms of your base salary than you would with a startup. Not as much money as the big company, not as many resources as the big company, maybe not as much balance as the big company, but more balance in the startup. And when they go public, you get in on potentially valuable stock when it's very, very cheap. So you get a lot of shares. Okay. And because there's fewer people, it's easier to rise the ranks there than it is to rise the ranks at a big company. Okay. But again, the risk is that just like the startup, when a company goes public, we don't know how the market's going to react and whether or not it's going to grow to be the next Tesla, Nvidia, Airbnb, Pinterest, or if it's going to fizzle out in 5 years. Right? So there's pros and cons to all of these. My advice, based on having conversations with people in your network that are in each of these environments, make a decision on what sounds the most exciting to you, most interesting, and just most familiar with how you operate. Go there first. And then based on your experience there, go to one that's way bigger or way smaller. So ideally, start at a startup and then go to a big company, or start at a big company, go to a startup, and then maybe go to the middle one in between. If you find you're at the big company and you love it, stay there. If you find that you go to a startup and you love it, stay there. If you find you want something in between, try the mid-tier and see how that goes. And my advice would be try to go to 2, if not all of these, within the first 5 to 10 years of your career. And then you'll have a better sense of which one is the best for you. Okay? And you'll start to develop a skill set that's really effective in that environment for the rest of your career, which gives you the most upward mobility over the next 10, 15, 20 years. Does that make sense? Okay? Any questions on this? Thumbs up.
Hey, Nick. Is Zoe here? Yeah. I have a question. Since I used to work in big companies before, I think for 4 years at the start of my career, and then I went, as you know, I went to startup companies, and but also there's a question. What do you suggest, or what like patterns, or how you suggest people to think of when their first step of their career, and how to choose between big companies, and like say if someone is about to he has to choose between big company and a startup company beside, and he had no idea of. I'm sorry, I can't hear your voice.
Sorry, I was saying there's kind of the 3 options, right? There's startups, and then there's like middle size, and then there's a big size, and then it's a spectrum, right? So, but it's a great question, Zoe. So, sorry, please continue. Yep.
Yeah, I've been asked several times by intern or new grad students.
Yeah. So it's a great question. Okay. What I would do is I would try to talk to as many people you can that are in your function in each of the areas from different companies. Okay. And I would try to talk to at least 3 to 5 minimum. Ideally, you're talking like closer to 10 or 15 in each of them over the next many years. Okay. It doesn't all have to be today. If you have the time, do it. But over the next many years, try to find people. So if you're a software engineer or you're a product manager, if that's the direction you want to go functionally, try to talk to people that are at different publicly traded companies that are in that role. Talk to people at that kind of pre-IPO, just went public side, and then talk to people at startups that are in that function. And ask them about the work they're doing. Ask them about the pros and cons of the work. Like, what do they really, really love? What do they really, really hate? Okay. And try to get the full understanding of what that looks like for them. And don't just stop at the work. Go beyond that to the lifestyle. What does your life look like outside of work? What does your relationship with your friends look like? What does your relationship with your family look like? What is in relation to your work environment? How does that support you or hinder those relationships? What about your relationship with yourself? Whatever is important to you as an individual, ask about those things. So for me, as an example, health is very important to me, right? I want to make sure that I can function properly. I'm not about like, make sure I look, cut and ripped and all that stuff like that. Sweet if that happens. But for me, it's like, I've gone through bouts in my life where like, I don't feel as mobile as I would like to feel. Like I was an athlete growing up, and sometimes I would get, feel physical pain and stuff. I've had things like this. So I want to make sure that I'm in an environment where I could still feel healthy. Does this environment allow me to support myself in the way that I need to support myself to keep healthy habits? Okay. And so what you're doing when you're having these conversations is you start to think about the lifestyle and the career of the people at the small company, at the mid-sized company, at the big company. And you just see which one is more in line with the life that I would want to have for myself and choose that. Okay. Whichever one you're seeing consistently after these conversations, there are people at that type of company doing that kind of work. That work sounds exciting to me. It sounds interesting. It sounds engaging. They have the life that I want. There's your answer. And that might change over time. So that's why I would say it's important to put yourself in ideally all three of these environments within the first 5 to 10 years of your career so that you get more exposure to the type of work that you're doing. You get more exposure to more people. You see what their lifestyles look like, all of that, and what aligns more with you. And if you find it with the first one, fantastic. You don't have to go to a bigger company or a smaller company. Just stay in that lane because it works. But if you're looking around and you're going, this is too slow paced for me, this is too fast paced for me, and it's not aligned with who I want to be or the type of challenge I want to have for myself in my career, then make the move. Make sense? Great question. Yeah, great question. Any other,
You
got it. Any other questions on this? Okay, let's keep cruising then. Culture. Culture is
Hey
another.
Nick,
Oh yeah. What's up, Josh?
hi. So I have a question for you. You mentioned about working at big companies, mid-sized companies, startups. So I'm a college student. I'm pursuing computer engineering, and in the long term, and when I say long term, I mean let's say in the next 4 or 5 years, I see myself starting my own startup, and it and I and that super inspires me, right? So for a person like me, should I be working at a big tech, or like currently I'm looking for internships and not full-time roles, so should I be like looking for big companies, or should I be interning at startups? Because I recently completed like 1 or 2 internships here and there. Those weren't like super big companies like Google or Amazon, but there's still big companies where there's a set procedure and it's not like I could do much. You get what I'm saying, right? I would work there, and on a daily basis I would do stuff, and sometimes I would be like, oh, I don't want to do this way. Oh, why don't they innovate, or why don't they do that? But they have been stuck there for a few years, and you can't really try to like shape their culture or anything because they're like an established company. So would you like advise me something?
Yeah, great question, Raj. And specifically, what I like about it is your thought process about it. You have a goal that you want to take on. You have exposure to one environment, and there are benefits that I want to highlight in the big environment. But there are also areas that you're thinking critically about that this might not be the right environment for me, and maybe I do want to start a company. Okay. And what you described is exactly how I felt at LinkedIn. Like to the letter, I felt that every day that I was there. Okay. Now, here are the pros to the big company. If your goal is to start a startup, okay, you get exposure to a wider group of people. So you have your university connections right now, and then you get a wider range of people that could potentially become founders, co-founders, just like at a university, or employees down the line. When you're at a startup, you might only have 10, 20 people that you're going to really be working closely with over the course of a year, multiple years. So by the numbers, there's a bigger pool of talent that you can kind of see who do you gel with, who can you build relationships with that might turn into a startup partner down the line. The second advantage to going to a big company is that you can earn more today, so you can save up for 3 to 5 years, and that gives you enough cash to have some runway to not have a salary for a few months while you're starting something, right? So that's another benefit. There's also a lot more balance in that environment generally. than a startup. So you also have a little bit more free time to continue to develop the skills that you need to be able to be effective in a startup environment. Okay. The third big benefit is that you have brand recognition, which can help you if you're trying to go through funding. Okay. So, for example, if you say to a VC in 5 years or an angel investor in 5 years, this is my team. They're 3 engineers. We all met at Google. This is what we accomplished at Google together. And this, what we accomplished here, whether it was a hackathon thing that you continued to pursue and was a proof of concept and you won a hackathon with it, or it was something that you actually shipped for Google that was impactful, and now you're building and iterating on the new generation, the innovation on that, that gives you a lot more credibility versus I was at this startup that may or may not have succeeded that you may or may not have heard of. Okay. So those are the 3 big 3 benefits. Okay. So again, bigger group of people, more time and money to help you build the skills that you need and give you the runway you need, and potentially more credibility. The thing with a startup is that you need to be able to work a lot more nimbly. You need to be able to change directions, change approaches, all this stuff much more rapidly. And you need to build that skill as a founder. Okay? There's a lot of founders that go from this space to this space in one fell swoop, but generally it's really uncomfortable for people that got comfy in this environment. Okay? So what I would recommend to get to the core of your problem or the core of your question, I would recommend, depending on what your internships were and how long you were there, try to go here for a little bit longer. Use your internships that were at kind of big ones to get to an innovative, successful, fast-paced one here, if you can. And stay there, if you can, for a few years, 1, 2, 3 years. Or go to a middle one, that will work too, okay, pre-IPO, where maybe there's tens of engineers, but if there can be some growth and success, that'll still give you the benefit of the credibility. It'll be a little less of a learning curve to get there, but I would go to one of these 2 first, and I would be there for a few years. Then before you start your own thing, I would try to find somebody, maybe somebody from your network from one of these that you admire, that you know has really strong technical skills, that has either been a founder or a CTO of a company that's small. Like very similar to Zoe, I know her before this session, right? She joined Jobright at a time that was still very young. It still is a young company in many ways. She has a lot more responsibility than somebody at that middle tier company or big tier company, and more responsibility than many people her own age or experience level, but she's learning from 2 incredible founders without taking the leap and the risk herself. So by being here, she's going to learn a tremendous amount from people who are a little bit more advanced than her. Between those 2, now she has the credibility and some savings that she can then invest to kind of build a bigger nest egg for herself. If this thing succeeds, she has even more money and credibility. But even if it doesn't, she builds the skill set she needs, and now she can be a successful founder. So if you can extrapolate that over 5 years, right? 2 to 3 years in big company or pre-IPO company, 2 to 3 years in startup where you're joining somebody who's more senior than you at the big company or mid-sized company that is just incredibly technically sound that you admire, you know, from a business perspective, from an ethics perspective, from an approach. Find the best leader you can find, join the company that they join, and then you can start your own thing. That would be my recommendation.
Thank you so much, Nix. That's a super helpful advice. And just when you're telling me all these things, I was able to kind of like create a plan in my mind, you know, that's like tailored for me. But I would just like to share it briefly with you, okay? So I thought of it that before.
Let me actually do this, Raj. I'd love to hear it. I want to make sure that we get through all of our slides today. Can you stick around to the end? I'm going to have a Q&A that'll start in about 15 minutes. I'm happy to call on you there, and then I can jump into the plan and give you some feedback on it. Does that sound fair?
That works. That works. Completely understandable. Okay, thank you.
You got it, man. All right. So from a culture perspective, what we should be thinking about here is align with both of our strengths and our values. So I'll give an example for myself. When I went to LinkedIn, part of it was because it was aligned with a mission for me. And part of it was because I heard that it has really good work-life balance. And at that point in my career, I didn't really know enough about myself to know if that was a good thing or a bad thing, but work-life balance sounded like a really good thing. And it was ranked the number one company to work for in the tech industry 2 years in a row, had the number one ranked CEO in the tech industry 2 years in a row. It was a great opportunity. Okay. It was right in that post IPO stage. So I went there and I learned this about myself when I was there, that I have a very obsessive personality when it comes to problem solving and innovation. And what that means is if I see a better way to do something, I just can't turn my brain off. It's a strength of mine, but it's also a weakness sometimes. Because what happened in my experience at LinkedIn was that I would get pressure from my manager or people at my manager's level when they would, LinkedIn had food on campus and stuff. People go work out after work or they go get dinner and they would come back to like grab their bag or whatever before they went home. And they would see me still working at 7, 8 o'clock at night. And that actually was a detriment where they would get upset with me and say, hey, this is not what we do here. By you doing this, you're making other people feel like they have to do that too. And you need to unplug and recharge for tomorrow so you can bring your best self to work. And I would actually get reprimanded for this work ethic as I perceived it because it wasn't aligned with their culture and their values. Now, when I got into Interview Kickstart, complete opposite, right? When I joined the founder, my interview was supposed to be an hour. It ended up being 4 hours because I was so obsessed with the questions he was asking me. I was just like, I want to solve all of these problems. And he loved it. So what happened, it became an environment where I got promoted 5 or 6 times in 7 years, right? And at the time that I left, I was the only person on the executive team, or the nearest person in age on the executive team was 5 years older than me, right? So that culture at that time in my life was more aligned with my strengths. I could be obsessive and it was going to be rewarded rather than reprimanded, okay? Again, these strengths and values can change over your lifetime, but think about that. Consider what the culture is, and it's not just about work-life balance. Think about whatever is important to your value system, your strengths. Try to find cultures, specifically hiring managers and organizations within companies that are aligned with your values, with your strengths, okay? And join those. I can get into this in the Q&A. I do want to cruise a little bit. A lot of good questions so far, but just want to make sure we get through everything, okay? Priorities, okay? Smaller companies, the priority is usually about learning a wider range of skills that aren't always purely technical, but are more about running a business, understanding customers. Bigger companies, it's generally more process orientation and being consistent with best practices and things like this, and high quality in there. So like, what do you want to learn, right? Bigger, typically more innovative tools and technologies at big companies. Sometimes like with Jobright, for example, I was very impressed early on that they also take innovative technologies into account, which is sometimes too expensive or challenging for startups at an early stage, but you can find them. They're just tough to find. High impact projects and skill development. Again, bigger projects or bigger companies, larger scale, harder to really be on the ground floor from a decision-making strategic perspective on like what high impact is in relation to that company, right? Because again, there's people more experienced than you in the company that are going to be on the more innovative projects and all that stuff. Smaller company, you'll have a better opportunity to be in the high impact projects for that companies, but not as big of a stage, all this stuff. So you got to think about these priorities. And then brand, okay? And again, brand is important. I have one friend who his first company out of college was a small, well, technically his second job out of college was a small 20-person company that ended up going public. Okay. He got the brand equity with that company with his first job. He got very lucky. That's not common. Okay. The way most people get the brand equity is they go to a pre-IPO company that does well, or they go to a big company that goes well. But getting that brand on your resume at some point in the first 5 years just makes it easier, gives you more freedom to move after that. You don't need it with your first role, but you want it somewhere on the resume so it opens up opportunities down the line. Okay. So the core question to ask yourself when you're thinking about all of this is really, what does this decision mean? Just like Daraj was asking, great question. What does this decision mean for the next 3 to 5 years of my career? Okay. If I think about the industry, the company size, the culture, how it aligns with my strengths and weaknesses, and I go on this path, where am I going to be in 3 to 5 years? And is that aligned with where I want to be in the next 3 to 5 years? Okay. All right. Now, how do you get the first job? Okay. And I want to put in here a big theme. Okay. Team. Together, everyone achieves more. It's corny. I used to have this nickname at my previous company that I was the Full House dad because I have all these like corny sayings and shit. Sorry for my language. But it really does apply to getting that first job and making sure you're getting a good first job that can launch your career. Okay, there are 3 strategies. There's applying, there's network, and then the third one is recruiters. I'm not going to go deep into recruiters today, and I've left that off here intentionally because recruiters are generally going to reach out to you more after you've accomplished something in your career. So at this stage, yeah, you might have some, but once you're 3, 5, 10 years into your career, recruiters reaching out to you become opportunities. At this stage, if it happens, like, okay, take it if it sounds cool, but you're really going to be looking at these 2 as your main levers to pull. Okay. The application route, high volume, you could apply to a lot of companies, doesn't take as much time as having conversations and networking, but it has a low conversion rate. And by quick show of hands, like how many people have applied to 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40 companies and not heard back or got ghosted or like they closed the position before you got through, right? We've seen this. Applications is a numbers game. It's not always going to work out, and that's fine. All right. But just know that that is a strategy, and you should aim to apply to multiple jobs every week to give yourself the shot, right? You're going to miss 100% of the shots you don't take. What I would recommend with this is I would come to a page like Jobright, put your resume in here, look for the roles that have high probability, and think of this like grades. Okay. This is an A opportunity in terms of, being able to have a chance to get through that funnel. It's not a guarantee because again, it's a numbers game and how many applicants do they have and how long has the position been open? We do at Jobright try to influence the roles that come up based on how long it's been open. So you can see like 1 day, 4 hours, 1 day, as well as the number of applicants. So we already do that for you where something like LinkedIn just has all of the positions. And you could see like, if I come in here, okay, let's just take this role as an example, 2 days, 100 applicants. This one's been open for 4 days, 100 applicants. And you'll start to see 1 week. So this doesn't filter as effectively. Like all these roles that have hundreds of applicants, it's already going to be pretty challenging by the numbers to actually get an interview because there's so many people in front of you, and it says over 100. So this could be hundreds, if not thousands. Okay, so we take that into account when we're showing what suggestions here. But find the ones that are like A opportunities, even B opportunities, like in the 80s. Maybe you can get this to become an A opportunity by asking Orion how to customize your resume on it. So it'll kind of give you tips. There's also a feature here, like this will tell you exactly what they're looking for. You can ask it to generate a custom resume, and it'll tell you like where your resume is aligned and not aligned, and then it'll actually do the improvements for you. Like these are skills that you need to develop, or if you already have these and they're not on your resume, you can add them, right? If you develop them, then you become more competitive for roles like this. And so like this will help you increase the probability of being seen. And now this has become a 10 out of 10 resume, right? So you went from 6 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10. So like those are the kinds of things that can help you. Okay. Improve your chances when you're applying. So I would commit yourself to a minimum just for the numbers game. For the first job, just give yourself a half hour, maybe a few days a week that you put on your calendar where your whole job is to just go to something like this and say anything in the 80s, anything in the 90s, customize my resume, make it better, even some 70s if it looks cool. Like just apply for the full half hour. If you get to 5, great. If you get to 10, great. If you get to 20, fantastic. But just apply. Okay. Some will reach back, some will not. That's fine. Now, and I should mention this as well, especially with your first job, expect the response rate to be low. That is normal. Okay. Regardless of the platform, that is normal. Even when you're experienced, applications are not going to have a high hit rate, low conversion rate. So don't be discouraged. Just commit yourself to the act of applying so that you have a chance. Now, what's going to give you higher conversion rates is networking. So the way I would do this, you don't have to do it like going to, I'm an introverted guy. I don't like going to big networking events and trying to find everybody like who has a job. I need a job. Like, please talk to me. That gives me anxiety. You don't have to do that. In fact, I would suggest not doing that. So this is what we built into Jobright that I would recommend. Go to the positions that, even the ones that you're applying to, that you're interested in. And if you look here, it'll tell you, this one has leadership team. Okay. Some of these will also have, there we go. People beyond your network or in your network. This one, for example, I don't know anybody in my network at this company, but these will give you opportunities to connect with people that went to the same school as you, that worked at companies that you might have interned with. So you have a commonality with them already that make it an easy bridge. And your goal is not, this is what 80% of the people, 90% of the people will do. They'll reach out to the people and say, can you refer me for a job? Do not do that. Okay. 2 big reasons. 1, they don't know you. Why would they give you a referral? If they refer you and you end up being really, really bad, then the next time they refer someone, the company is going to say, I don't trust your referral. So they don't know you. The probability of them actually going through the effort to refer you is very, very, very low. Even if you have a very impressive resume, it's very, very, very low. The second reason why you shouldn't ask for a referral is because the biggest value to you at this point in your career is to learn from those people, to see, is this the company stage that I want to be at? Is this the culture I want to be at? Do you have the lifestyle I want to have? And if you ask them for a referral, you lose the opportunity to learn all those things. So what I would do instead is reach out to these people, talk about the commonality, okay? Customize this a little bit and say, hey, I noticed that, you're at this company. I recently applied. I would love to connect and learn a little bit more about your experience there. Do you mind if we schedule a quick phone call, a quick Zoom chat, a quick cup of coffee, right? And in those conversations, just talk to them about all these things. And in the end, the key question, if you want to get that referral, if it sounds like a great environment to you, is you just ask, and write this down, you just ask as your final question, what makes someone successful in your environment at my stage in my career? Okay. For somebody who's in an entry-level seat, what would make somebody successful at your company? And you ask this, one, to see if you actually would be successful based on your own strengths. Okay. Two, so that if and when you get an interview, you can present yourself effectively. And three, because if they do say things that are aligned with your experience, with your education, with your projects, with your interests, you can then very naturally say, that's great to hear. I've done these things in my free time or in my school or in my internships. Is that what you're talking about? They say, yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And you say, oh, that's good. That makes me a good fit. They say, haha, yes, good job, right? And that's where it's very easy to say, I did apply for this, but I haven't heard back. Do you mind introducing me to a recruiter? It would really help me out. And because you didn't ask for it outright, because they got to know you, because you showed them that you could potentially be successful in that environment, and because they themselves have been at this point in their career struggling to get their first job, they are much more likely to say, let me help you out. They won't do it 100% of the time, okay? But there are a lot of people who are willing to do this if you have this informational interview with them and you show them that you value what they're telling you, that you appreciate that they're taking the time to talk to you, that you ask them good questions about their life, that shows them that you're smart. Being smart is not about being able to tell everybody everything that you know. It's about being able to ask the right questions to get the insights needed to make the right decision. And that is something that I and many other people don't understand at the age of 22, 23. That is something that people learn when they're in their late 20s, early 30s. And so if somebody in their late 20s, early 30s, or later hears you asking those questions, they go, whoa, this person is way more advanced at their age than I was at their age. Do you see how this works? Okay. Can you give some examples of such questions? Yes, absolutely. Great question. So we're going to go back to all of these. Okay. You're asking questions around industry. Why were you asking them a question about themselves? Everybody likes to talk about themselves. Why were you interested in this company, in this industry, in this problem? Okay. So for example, they work at a healthcare company. There's so many companies that you could be an engineer at. Why did you choose a healthcare company? Like, what was it about this company or this mission that really drew you to it? Okay. That's a next level question that people don't ask until later in their career. Asking about the company stage and where the trajectory is. Again, next level question. Even a big company, right? Even a big company, like, how do you feel about the direction of where this company is going? Is it on the right trajectory? Do you believe in leadership? Do you believe in the roadmap? Why? And this is a really good question to ask because a lot of big companies don't stay big forever. Okay. There were times not that long ago inside your lifetime where Google and Amazon were not really known commodities, right? And there were other big tech companies. There was a time when Apple was the biggest tech company in the world. And then there was a time when Apple almost went bankrupt after they were the biggest company in the world. And then they came back and became one of the biggest companies in the world again. So companies go through stages. So when you ask, like, your company is at this stage, where do you think it's going to be in 5 years? What gives you the faith in that? Why are you concerned about that? Asking follow-up questions about their insights. Culture. Again, asking, like, how do people make decisions in this environment? Right? What types of behaviors or values are rewarded in this environment? How does this impact your life outside of work? How does this impact your ability to grow as a professional? These types of questions are next level questions that most people your age would not even think to ask. And that's no fault to the people who don't think to ask those. It's simply that they have not had the commitment to themselves and the ambition to themselves to come and spend an hour with somebody on a Thursday night the way you are today. Okay. So they're not like they're groundbreaking questions, but they're just questions that, unless you take the time to learn the skill of career advancement, and it is a skill that you will develop, they're just not, it's not going to be intuitive to ask a lot of these questions. If they're intuitive to you, great. You've been doing great. If they're not, well, now you know them. Cool. All right. Now, again, when you're going to your network, we're talking about commonality. You're having those informational interviews with them. Then you make the ask. Okay, you know it's going to be in there, make you successful in your environment. Then you ask. And here's a big bonus. Again, a lot of folks may not realize at first. Squad up. What do I mean by this? You can look at any industry. Has anybody heard of the PayPal Mafia? I know it's kind of old school, but has anybody heard of them? Okay. The PayPal Mafia, for anyone who hasn't heard of them, is Elon Musk, Reid Hoffman, Peter Thiel, and a bunch of others. And if you're not familiar with who these people are, they were the first, like, a few core members of the first 12 people of PayPal. There was a period of time where PayPal was actually the most innovative company on the planet. And the people who were early founders of those went on to basically fund the entire Silicon Valley. They were either the founders or the first investors in YouTube, in Twitter, what now X, now Elon owns X, LinkedIn, Facebook before it was Meta, like all of these. Okay. Amazon, like they were involved in the start of all of these. Okay. Squad up. Think about your favorite entertainers. Even if they're an independent artist, a lot of rappers feature on each other's albums, right? They're both benefiting by working together, even though they're independent. Movie stars, actors, actresses. You'll notice a lot of people will pair up with the same directors throughout their career, or they'll pair up with the same group of actors over their career, right? Squad up. So same thing here. If you have friends, they don't have to be like people that are going to be your mentors or anything yet. If you have friends that are ambitious like you, that are in computer science like you, that are interested in applying to the same companies as you, squad up. Prepare them for their interviews. Have them help you prepare for your interviews. If there's someone in your network at a company that they're interested in, help introduce them so that they can get an introduction, an informational interview. Teach them everything that you learned tonight. Okay? Talk to them about these things. Because what happens is, even if they get to that opportunity first, they can refer you. And if you get to the opportunity first, you can refer them. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Does that make sense? Okay. I have not, and this is going to sound weird, I have not had a formal interview where I applied to a job since before I joined LinkedIn, because I squatted up. Yes, I had to go through interview processes, but everything was an introduction from a friend saying, I know somebody who's hiring. Let's have a conversation. That sounds crazy, but it's been over a decade. That's where you start to get the real opportunities. Okay. So squad up. All right. And then Jobright and LinkedIn, we won't have time for a full demo, but really what I just want to show you is you can start to use these kinds of features. You can find a lot of opportunities. It can help you to customize your resume and all that. LinkedIn doesn't do that. One thing I did want to highlight with LinkedIn is when you're trying to reach out to people, a little hack for this, because you want to see, like, you want to learn more about them. So when you reach out to them, you can express the commonality. So you know that this person, David O, is at People Data Labs. Okay. So you're going to go like this in here, put their name. No, not there. Okay. You're going to say David O. and people data labs. Okay. And all it is you're going to put that big and in the middle of who they are and the company. And then this is going to tell you who they are. This person's in my network. Fantastic. And that'll tell you who that David O is, just in case there's multiple of them. You can either reach out to them on LinkedIn. If you have their number, you can text them. You can look to see, like, how do I know this person, right? Like, where was our association if you don't really remember their name? So that's a little demo that I wanted to share there as well. Okay. Small doubt. Go for it, Bala.
My voice is audible.
Yes, ma'am. Go for it.
Yes, actually, actually, I'm also applying jobs through via Jobswriter, the same website, and also I'm getting reference from other websites. But only the foremost thing is like when I was applying, and it is getting applied. But while networking, even the networking is also in these situations, we are not able to get work because most of the referrals are not working because actually the same situation happened over here when I applied for one company. I think it's like Syncos. It's a US based company, and I applied for the business analyst position. So what I got is like the Jobsite platform has shown me like three members of connections. So I have gone through them, and then after reaching out, one guy has given me the reference. So after reference, till now I haven't received any update from the company, either via like a rejected or else like approved or anything. What is the status under consideration? Or else like not yet suitable. I haven't received anything.
Yeah.
And another situation like not in jobs, right? Like in the same position in LinkedIn. As you know, like LinkedIn premiums are coming over day by day, are increasing day by day. So, but main issue is like we are getting only like per week monthly I was paying of $40, but within fraction of 1 week I was finishing all the new credits. I don't know what, because of the getting more connections, because of applying more and more towards more job opportunities. After 1 week again I can't able to apply, I can't able to contact the recruiter, or it's like I'll contact the hiring manager also, or any other person.
So
This is the problem I was facing everywhere. And also some of my friends are suggesting me like to take another websites like refer me, but I don't know how much trustworthy are those websites, because I know Jobsrite website is trustworthy, but here I was getting a small idea. I don't know whether it's good or bad. I don't know. It's up to you to tell me about that. In Jobsrite AI, when you are when the AI platform is giving like a networking, the people, those who are working over in that particular locations, like in that particular company, why can't we able to keep a message directly through that platform? Why not? Why should we go to LinkedIn and then connect with them?
Good
That's
question.
my idea.
Yeah, so there's three questions there. Okay, so I'll address all three, but I want to make sure I understand them quickly. The first one is we're trying to apply to opportunities and we're still not hearing back. Okay, and yes, we can try to reach out to people, but our in-mails run out, which is actually kind of two questions, right?
Yes.
So how do we're applying and not hearing back? Then there's the in-mail issue. And then you also mentioned recruiters. I wanted to touch on that. And then you also mentioned the last one is like, why not reach out to people directly on Jobright? Okay.
Yes.
Let's start backwards and move. Start from the back and move to the front. Okay. So the Jobright thing. The short answer for this here. Oh, sorry. And you also mentioned.
No, it's not.
I'm going to write these down to make sure I address them all. But you also mentioned the issue of recommendations from friends. Okay, so the first one is why not just message directly? So this is one of the things of when you jump on different types of platforms, every platform has a benefit and a weakness just based on the stage that they are in their own growth. So as an example, The benefit to LinkedIn is they have a lot of people on the platform already because they've been around for 20 years, right? And it's a widely adopted tool.
Yes.
The downside of that is that all of those people have a lot of people reaching out to them all the time for everything. They have people
Yes.
reaching out for networking. They have people reaching out for referrals. They have people reaching out to sell them products and services. They have recruiters reaching out to them. And what a lot of people do at a company that is that size, at a platform that's that size, is they stop being as present on that platform. Okay. On a thing like Jobright, at our stage, we have a long way to grow in terms of the volume effect of people, but we're optimizing for features that help you get the higher probability of actually securing interviews over time. Okay. And again, the claim here and the goal here is, I mean, it'd be fantastic if the first 5 positions you apply to, you get those interviews. But when you think about the percentage of people who just apply on all platforms that actually get interviews, it's very low. What our tool optimizes for is to improve those chances, and the odds improve, but it doesn't mean that it's like 80%. We get better and better, but that's what we're optimizing for and spending our time and resources on, is making sure we can get that stronger and stronger and stronger every year. Okay. So that's where I say LinkedIn was built to be a networking tool, not an application tool. The original goal of LinkedIn was 6 degrees of separation. There's lots of people on there so you can find each other and network. And then like, oh, well, we have all these people. We can make a job platform that we can monetize and get companies to pay us to recruit on and all this stuff. So that's one thing, where use the tools for what they're good for. Use Jobright to make sure that you understand, as you apply to one job and another, what adjustments you need to make, what skills you need to create or like build to be more competitive on the market. Use it to find people who would be warm leads. And then if you find them on LinkedIn, then that would be a place that you could reach out to them. Or if you realize, oh, I know that person from school, and that person from school knows, like there's a second degree connection. Let's give an example here. Okay. I know these people. I can then see, okay, well, maybe Lonnie can give me an introduction to David. I can text Lonnie to get an introduction to David, right? So there are benefits to using both. Use the tool that works for you to get the most benefit at that time. We will have things like this. It's on the roadmap, but just not there yet, because it's not the core problem we want to solve at this point in time. So that's to address that. Now, the question about I can't reach out to recruiters and things like this. First thing,
Yes.
who did I tell you to reach out to for informational interviews? Recruiters or someone in your function?
Come again?
So we talked about this a little bit tonight of, should I reach out to a recruiter for an informational interview or a referral, or should I reach out to somebody in my function? Meaning
No, some other, not only the recruiter, anyone
So-
to get
Yeah.
connections.
Yes. So let's talk about that, because I want you all to understand this. This is a big competitive advantage. You're likely not going to get a high success rate by reaching out to recruiters or hiring managers. Why? Because they know exactly who they're looking for, and they have high demands on their time to go find that person proactively. And so if they're not coming to you, it's usually not worth their time to listen to you. And I'll tell you why. Because when you're an engineer, think about it from this perspective. When you're an engineer, you're working on a very specific project with a very specific team. And there are maybe 8 engineers in that team, and there's maybe 60 teams of engineers of 8 apiece. They all have the same title, software engineer, but they're all working on very different things, right?
Yes.
Recruiters are the exact same way. So you might reach out to a recruiter and say, hey, I'm a software engineer that can help you with something. And in their mind, they're going, I'm also looking for a software engineer, but I'm looking for an Android developer, or I'm looking for an iOS developer, or I'm looking for a solutions architect. And you're not those things. And just to let you know what the expectation is on a recruiter, when I was in the recruiting seat, what was expected of me is that I speak to on the phone 25 people a day. Now let's think about, even if I have a 10-hour day, that's 2.5 people per hour. not including lunch, not including breaks, not including meetings. So if I know who I'm looking for and you are not that person, it's not anything personal. It's about efficiency. And for additional context, when I was at LinkedIn, I would get literally 100 plus of these messages every single day of people coming to me saying, I'm a good fit for your company. You might be a good fit for somebody that sits in Chicago. I'm out here in Sunnyvale, California. There's a recruiter that's looking for you. You get the point? So when you reach out to an engineer, what happens is they generally have a better exposure to the different engineering teams, and they can tell you generally what's needed from an engineering perspective, from a culture perspective, all of that. And then when you ask for an introduction, they generally know somebody that's at the team that you would know. Or if you're a fit for their team, then they'll say, I can introduce you to my recruiter because my recruiter is the one that's looking for you and they haven't found you yet. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's much better to go through your function because those people are also not as inundated as the recruiters. Okay. So, long way to put that, but connect with people in your function. You get a lot more insight, a lot higher probability you get a referral in the end. Now, the other that you mentioned from here was, remind me, please.
Why can't we connect through jobs, right? Only why not? Why are you keeping like a LinkedIn?
No, that point I already mentioned.
Yeah.
In terms of Jobright's not optimizing for that functionality right now. You can connect with some people, but again, if you look at this person like David, right? LinkedIn has other connections. So if I don't have direct contact to David, I can reach out on LinkedIn or on Jobright, but are they going to respond to that? Don't know. But if I know one of these people well and I have their phone number, I can call them or text them and say, hey, do you know David? They do. Do you have their number or their email? Or like, can you introduce me? That's going to give you a better likelihood for success. So you're using the tools that are the best for the job. It's kind of like saying, like, if you want to be an iOS developer, learn Swift, right? If you want to be, in MLAI or whatever, like there's a different tech stack that you need to learn. Learn the tools that are most effective for that job at that time. Jobright will have those features filled out, but that's not what we're optimizing for right now.
Okay.
There was one more question that you asked. All right.
Yes, if I get any other doubt, I'll let you know. Meanwhile,
yeah. The other thing, just a quick note, and then I want to make sure I'm answering other folks' questions as well. The maximum in mails and stuff like that. That is a spam feature that LinkedIn built. Actually, a little bit around the time that I was there, maybe a little bit after or a little before a while I was there. But LinkedIn they were talking about it while I was there, that there was a problem where there were people that were just blasting 100 people every single day saying, give me a referral, give me a referral, give me a referral, give me a referral. And it was leading towards people saying, this is ridiculous. I don't want to be on LinkedIn anymore. And so people were leaving LinkedIn because of this. So that is a built-in feature that they brought in to minimize that from happening. It still happens, but now there's a guardrail, so it happens less, right? So that is a weakness of LinkedIn's tool, where we would say, yes, you can use in-mails, you can use messages, you could use connection requests, but there are limitations to that. So be targeted with it. And if there's a more direct way, if you are friends with them on another platform, or you have their number, or you can get introduced, like reach out to them in another route outside of LinkedIn, so you can save those in-mails and get a higher volume of that initial outreach. Make sense?
okay.
Very good questions. All right. Any other questions here? I know our friend Raj had some questions. We can come back to you, but I do want to make sure if there are any other questions. I know we're a little over time. I'm happy to go another 14 minutes. So I want to make sure if there are any other questions that we get those addressed as well.
And one more thing, I have another question. Uh,
I do want to make sure that I'm giving everyone a chance. And I have a few questions that are coming up here in the chat box. So you can come back to that. So Tarun is asking, could you also please touch base on cold mails as well? Any specific templates you'd like us to follow or refer to? So good question here. The general template overlay I would do. So I'd think about somebody like David. Okay, I want to start with commonality. I want to follow that with appreciation. I want to follow that with an ask. CAA. Okay. Commonality. There is a phrase that you may have heard before. Birds of a feather flock together. Okay. There's actual psychological, science-based backing to this. When somebody is like us in many ways, and there are a number of ways to think about this, value systems, where they're from, where they went to school, religion, just culturally like us in different ways, their interests, there is a level of safety there. Why? Because we understand them. And when we understand them, there's less of a fear of the unknown of how might they do something that could be in danger to me. Okay? This is something that we as a species have evolved to adapt to over time. So you start with the commonality. The way I would do this with David as an example, okay, I would probably, because we didn't go to the same university, we didn't work at the same companies, it would likely start with one of these people, okay? So David, I see that you're connected to, and I would mention maybe one or two people here that I really like, that I think highly of, that I feel think highly of me. So I'd say, David, I see that you're connected to Lonnie and Nina. You're in great company, right? So I'm showing the commonality. We're both connected to these people. I'm complimenting them. I'm appreciating them. Okay. You could then look at something inside here. Maybe they've written something. Maybe you see that they've been promoted multiple times at a company you like. Okay. You want to acknowledge this and appreciate them, make them feel good about themselves. So a way I would do this is basically say something along the lines of like, I always thought People Data Labs was a cool company. And after looking at your profile here, I see that you were promoted multiple times at Remedly and worked for some cool companies. Beyond that, I'd love to learn, how you've grown in your career. Complimenting them, making them feel good. Then the last sentence is, do you mind, or I would love to have a conversation with you. Can we schedule some time for a quick phone call or a cup of coffee? Ideally, you would establish reciprocity. I'd love to buy you a cup of coffee, and learn more about your career growth and stuff like this. What would be a good time? So again, you're starting off by establishing commonality, giving them a compliment about something that they wrote that you liked. Maybe it's in their bio, you like it. Maybe it's they've posted something that you like. Maybe it's something about their career that you like. Maybe it's a project that you like, but you compliment them and then you make the ask, can we have a conversation? That's the basic template. And you can customize it, use ChatGPT to find different templates, but that's the basic process that I've seen give the best response rates. It's still not going to give 100% response rate, but generally, if you're getting about 15 to 25% response rate, that's pretty good. That accounts for people that are just not active on LinkedIn. That accounts for people who are not very active. They're very, very busy and just not looking at it. And that accounts for people that see your message and just go, I don't have time for this, or I'm not interested, right? But if you have a template that's hitting 15 to 20, 25% of the time, go for it. Keep that template. Okay? Good question, Tarun. Zoom user, would you mind giving another example of how you would introduce yourself on commonality? Yeah. So again, it could be people that you know, it could be the university that you're at, it could be the school or the company you worked at. So example that I would use personally. So I went to Santa Clara University. I would call it the best university in the world. Of course, I'm biased, but hey, that's if I see somebody that's from Santa Clara, I would say something like, "Hey, blah blah blah. Hey, David, you know, looks like you've had an awesome career. Go Broncos. Prepared you well, right? Commonality." And then they look at my thing and they go, "Oh, they went to Santa Clara as well. Well, if I've made it this far and I felt good about my education, they're probably a smart person too, right? We're connected to the same people. Ooh, I like Lonnie. She's awesome. I like Nina. She's awesome. You know them. You must be awesome. Association, right? Oh, I see that you worked at LinkedIn. Looks like we had some overlap. Funny that we never bumped into each other. Or, it's been a while since LinkedIn. How's everything going for you? So those are all different ways to establish commonality. Okay. I do not know how relevant it is to this meeting. I applied to a job by cold emailing. I think I got over the resume to shortlist. Then they asked me to send a Loom link of my explaining my projects and sent it over. And since then, no reply. I got that they are a small team managing a huge company, so I do not want to follow up. But it's been a week. Okay. So let's talk about inbound applicants and creative ways like this. This kind of strategy generally will only work at smaller companies. You can get very lucky sometimes by doing this at a bigger company, but it has to be through this kind of methodology where you're reaching out to somebody that you have a lot of commonality with. And if they, see that commonality, they might be willing to take a look and refer you in. But even still, like the informational route is going to give you a better response rate. Smaller companies, sometimes you get in with somebody who just values the hustle and the attempt. And so they're willing to push you along. Why they ask for a Loom video, that's probably a company specific thing that they do for all candidates for that certain role. So I wouldn't think much of that. I would just do it if they ask. In terms of the response of it, it could mean a lot of things. And what I've found is generally I just like to look at data and not create a narrative around the data. And what I mean by that is they could have not responded because we're just not a fit or they didn't like the video, but that doesn't mean other people wouldn't find us to be a fit or maybe other people would like the video. It could mean that the position closed. It could mean that they just have a lot of applicants in the pipeline and they put you in that pipeline, but there are people that are further along in the process than you are, and they're just saying we don't have time to interview them all, so we'll come back to you. So like there's a lot of things there. But what I would do is I would pay attention to at that level of company, okay, if you approach them in this way, is it getting you more interviews? Let's put it down in a spreadsheet or on a piece of paper, whatever, just don't lose it. I've applied to 15 startups using this method. How many interviews did it actually yield? Or conversations did it yield? I applied to 15 startups by going through my network. I applied to 15 startups going through the application process. Which one is yielding the best results? Based on who you are as a candidate and the experience and the education you are, based on who you are in terms of your ability to communicate in an email or a meeting or any of this kind of stuff, one strategy will generally work more for you than others. When you find that strategy, and usually it takes between 15 to 30, really like 30 data points to find out, latch onto it and do that more. What I found generally goes back to this, and I've helped, again, tens of thousands of people transition in their career, both from the recruiting seat, from the coaching seat, and from the hiring manager seat. Using a mix of both of these is going to yield the most results. in the first few jobs, this is time consuming. It's more work than this, but this generally gets you better opportunities than this one. Do the applications for the high value to give yourself the chance, and then work on different networking strategies to try to give yourself more targeted opportunities that are in line with this. Okay. All right. I know we've gone way over. You guys are asking amazing questions. I did promise that I would come back to Darude. Sorry, sorry, Daraj. Thank you, Daraj. I'm going to come back to you. And then there was one other friend here, Bala. I'll try to get to you. So we have 3 minutes and then the Zoom call is going to end. So Daraj, 30-second pitch. And then I'll give you my 30-second answer. And then Bala, same thing, 30 seconds. And I'll give you my quick response. All right, go for it.
Okay, 30 seconds. So what you said from that, I've created a plan that is I graduate next year, and before I graduate, I have to complete 2 internships. Now, these 2 internships, I thought I would do at a startup, and I would like to do at a startup. There's this thing called Tiny ML I'm really interested in, so I want to do it at a startup. And then when I graduate, I was thinking I would work at a big tech for a few years, so that would give me enough money, because I also kind of have to take care of my parents, not in like they're dependent on me, but sort of support them. I'm getting out of college, they've done so much for me, and then start my own startup after a few years. But right now I have the thing of taking risk before I graduate for these next 2 internships, and then I was thinking of working a startup. So what do you think about this plan? Thank you.
Yeah, great, and great job to do it concisely as well. Yes, I think this plan is good. I would still factor in the networking aspect for different startups. More so for the second one than the first one. But I would try to see if you can find somebody from your, that went to your school before, or somebody in your network in some way, maybe they're a parent's friend or a friend's friend or whatever, that is at a really successful startup, so that you can optimize the probability of one of those 2 potentially hitting. Because if one of those 2 do hit, then you don't have to go to the big company at all. You can have the credibility because you started your career at a really successful one. And you might find where your first internship is actually doing really, really well. I would still get a second internship somewhere else, and then you can come back to that first one if it is doing well. So just to diversify, basically the approach, network, and try to make sure you target other people at really good startups, and try to see like which ones are actually performing well, which one do they have more faith in from its roadmap and where it's going. Okay, great work, man. Great question.
Yep, that sounds helpful. Thank you, Nick.
You got it. Bala, you're up.
Question has been asked by them only. No worries.
You got it. Well, perfect. We'll end on that one then.
Can you please share us your LinkedIn profile?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Here you go. I'll drop it in the Zoom chat for you all.
Okay, I think that's the last minute. Yeah, it's about time.
I'm unable to drop it in the thing, but yeah, I'll give it to the team, and they could drop it in the Discord if you guys want to chat
Okay.
with it.
Okay.
All right. Have a great evening. Thank you all for.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nick. Yep.
See you guys.
Bye. See you.